Okay, could we call the meeting to order, please? Could we all rise for the pledge? And again, the flag is this one. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Fryrick? Here. Mr. G? Here. Mr. Postman?
Here.
Mr. Robinson? Here. Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mrs. Schrader? Here. Mr. Sears? Here. Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Tillman? 9 members present.
Thank you. Reminder to please silence your cell phones during the meeting.
For the record, I just want to share that contrary to things that have been said and I have read out in the public, this board has not ignored student mental health concerns. Long before COVID-19 was in the headlines or masking was even a consideration, this board learned that our students were not doing well from a mental health perspective and took decisive action by creating a new dedicated position to address the emotional and mental health needs of our kids. That was 3.5 years ago when we hired Miranda King to be our social worker back in August of 2018. This year, we added the services of a second social worker and a second school psychologist. We've also addressed student mental health with the creation of a fairly new course at the middle school called Roots and Wings. One of its objectives is to help students develop and apply the skills they need to understand and manage their emotions. As a member of the Curriculum and Academic Standards Committee, I was encouraged by the creation of this course and by the positive feedback we've received. As board members, we're responsible and accountable to help create an environment that provides the best opportunity for student success. Obviously, unresolved mental health issues can be a roadblock to that success. We have supported this critical need by offering them specific skills and resources to help them do better. These issues are very real, very serious, and the concern is not new to us. Student mental health has been part of our deliberation process for a number of years and will likely continue for the foreseeable future. These are just a few of the ways the board has proactively addressed the mental and emotional needs of our kids. A worldwide pandemic, a super contagious virus, and months of seclusion and isolation have no doubt contributed to the decline of mental health among all age groups. Virtual learning was less than ideal, but we've moved forward, and it seems everyone is pleased that we've been able to keep our schools open. Life hasn't been normal for any of us for almost 3 years, but adolescent mental health issues transcend COVID. They didn't begin with the pandemic and sadly will not end it. I'm eager to hear from Miranda tonight for an update on this topic and would like to publicly thank her and her team for their dedication. You've taken on a mammoth task and we appreciate your hard work. Thanks.
Thank you. This will be the first opportunity for public comment. All comments and questions will be addressed to the president. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the president for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the president, 5 minutes or less. Any takers?
Good evening. My name is Sarah Reinecker, 1101 Farquhar Drive. totally unplanned commentary, but after listening to what Lois Ann had to say, I want to reiterate and commend not only the staff and the board and our entire community for the diligence and the care that you have put into helping children and putting children first. What's motivated me to come to the microphone is having worked with Miranda personally through the York Suburban Education Foundation's food pantry. I want to give you a few examples of what that care means and what it looks like. Many, many, many times, even before the pandemic, Miranda and I were coordinating by text at 8 p.m. in the evening. She was contacting her father, who has a pickup truck, to fill it with bedding and beds, when 2 days before that, she realized that some of the children in the district, as she did home calls, did not have beds, that they were sleeping on bare floors, and she took action immediately, and she had the resources of volunteers in this community that were putting their time and their efforts in daily to help meet those needs. The needs are very individual, child by child. I've heard members of this community get up to this microphone and, in my view, grandstand about what they think mental health needs are in this community. And what I will say as a parent and as a volunteer, living it and breathing it since probably, well, my daughter is about to graduate from college, and I started this game when she was a kindergartner. They're very individual needs, family by family by family. And standing up to the microphone and pretending that you know what those individual needs are in a generalized way does not bring collaboration, and it does not bring help to the individual children that need it. Thank you, Miranda. Thank you to Shylin. I'm so glad that you have a second person on board. And I really encourage you, as you continue deliberations and try to find budget line items to be able to keep him or outside of a grant and into the actual budget, I really encourage you to move in that direction. Thank you.
Other comments? Thank you. We have the link to the minutes for the regular monthly meeting held on January 24th, 2022. Unless there are corrections, I would submit them be approved as submitted. The board met in executive session on February 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of discussing personnel. No official action was taken. And I would like to take a few minutes here to recognize Mr. Steven Scalette. Stand up. Join me. This plaque is presented to Stephen P. Scalette, PhD, in recognition of your 4 years of service as a member of the York Suburban Board of Directors, December 2017 to 2021. On behalf of the entire York Suburban community, we thank you for your dedication and commitment to our schools. That, Dr. Whitman.
Thank you, Mr. Posner. Tonight, on the superintendent's report, we have 3 items. First of which is a school calendar for next year. Dr. Ketterman has been running a committee to come up with a recommendation to the board. So tonight for your consideration, and at the voting meeting in 2 weeks for action. I'll turn it over to Dr. Ketterman.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to point out a few of the changes in the proposed recommended calendar for next year. First of all, you'll notice that comparing to this school year, the calendar has a later start of 1 week. And then the second change is that we've greatly reduced the number of early dismissal days. And we recouped the professional learning time by adding 2 additional full-day professional development days within the context of the school year. This year, we tried to do something a little different, and we added several early dismissal days for professional development, and there were a lot of positives to it. It's a great way to deliver professional learning and in a timely manner. However, it also had some drawbacks, and we did recognize that. So what we have done is we've consolidated that early dismissal time, in a sense, into full days of professional development. Not equally, of course, because there can be 9 early dismissal days within the context of the school calendar that we've converted to 2 professional learning days. And we really feel that this is going to be a better solution as far as it'll provide continuity of instruction. It provides full days of instruction for students and full days of professional learning for staff as well. And it's also a more family-friendly calendar without having so many early dismissal days. Any questions about the recommended calendar?
I know this is not an easy task. You need to spend more time on a lot of other, but I appreciate your effort. Also, it says that the total student days is given as 180 days. Now, even that does not, that includes that 80 days.
Correct.
It's going to be at 80 days. Kids are out sick. Teachers are out sick. Nobody gets this 183 days. You know what I'm saying? You set the calendar up so that you can have 180 days. But things come along. They won't be in person now. I assume you're going to be some of the flex days or virtual days, things like that. Kids won't miss 2 days, no days. I always figured teachers are out sick, whatever, or students are out sick, or it's a family vacation, educational trip time. You can sit down and get closer to 170 or 73 days, 175 days.
Are you talking for any individual student because of the days they miss?
Yeah, days they miss. We still have students who are perfect attendance. Sure.
Yeah.
We combine that. But on the average, kids miss for various teachers. 780 days is not something we easily get to. I know at one point in this family, we used to get 185 days. But in reality, nobody. Fair amount of students get here all the time. Some don't.
Oh, our attendance rates are very strong, up in the 98 percentage. So it would be the few students that don't get the actual 178, because again, the 183 includes the Act 80 days.
So you take 4 or 5 out already. Yeah, 80 days, right?
For professional development, parent conferences.
That's correct. So 78 still permissible by law.
It is, because Act 80 days count as student days, and actually, really, it's the number of hours, instructional hours that are counted, and we are well above the required 900 for elementary and 990 for secondary. We're well above that.
I'm just curious. I think I always thought about it for my children. We're out for a few days. Turns out 2 days really. You're not getting a good old 180. That was for sure. Not the longest 46 professional development days. But I do like the idea that you've gotten to something like that. Perspective of planning programs for teachers. Parents thinking, what's better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ketterman. Again, this will be for action in 2 weeks. Also tonight, Dr. Krauser will give us an FFP update. Dr. Krauser.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Williams. Good evening, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully you've had a great day so far, and if not yet, maybe still this evening before we go. So with that being said, I'm giving a quick update on our future focused planning. We have recommunicated again our plans to update the community and the engagement level based on the meeting that was originally planned for January. It's now rescheduled for February 23rd. We're going to use that in a virtual setting. And there's really two ways that community members can participate. Number one, first and foremost, we have opened up a frequently asked questions page and a question submission page on our website. So anyone can communicate questions at this point via the website, and we're running an FAQ document that's being updated regularly. Regarding the February 23rd meeting, the virtual meeting is in two stages. You can pre-register to be part of the question and answer period and engage in a Zoom session, answer questions in a session with the members of the administrative team. Or you can choose to just watch it virtually like you would a board meeting and be able to reference that from afar. But both of those options will be there. The plan for that evening, as it was originally planned for in January, is we'll begin with a brief introduction, kind of an overview of where we've been to date, and then we'll guide questions around certain themes. We'll open up with questions associated with transportation, then move into finances, our planned education program, and then our engineering and design. That way we can kind of hear questions and answers responding to that, but we will certainly respond to any other questions as they come to us. So if you haven't yet registered to attend on February 23rd, we certainly invite you to do so now. If you'd just like to watch the streaming experience, you'll be able to see that link on our website as well. And that's an update for the future focused planning.
Thank you, Dr. Crowther. And the third item we have tonight is about a year ago, we had Ms. King give us a presentation on the topic of student mental health. We're having her back again about 13 months after that. Ms. King.
Evening. Thank you for inviting me to come back to give you guys an update on some really important things to discuss, topics to discuss, and to all of you, thank you so much for the accolades. It's not been an easy 4 years, but I find my energy somewhere to stay motivated to help as many students and families as I can within our walls and in the community. So you can go ahead and go to the first slide. So where did we start? So I do want to give a little bit of the historical piece of my role and mental health in general. So as early as the 19th century, we had what was called mental hygiene. At that time, we didn't really diagnose it as a diagnostic thing, but it very much existed. In July 2018, I myself was hired as the school social worker. And the big reason for me being hired was the demographics were shifting. We noticed an increase in poverty, mental health instability, ACEs. And if I can just speak to that area for a second, when I look at current data, just our homeless families, just to give you an indicator, I'm up to 41 plus or minus families that are currently residing in our district that are considered homeless. That number has increased, almost doubled every year. For varying reasons, and with the pandemic, it's really been hit hard on lack of income, job loss, housing stability, food insecurities, and those sorts of things. When I first came on board, I took the time to do the ACEs, actually with our 7th graders at the time, in middle school, to really start to understand what does our data look like here at York Suburban for children who experience an adverse childhood experience. Such thing as violence in the home, divorce. Do they feel love, abuse, those sort of things that would make it difficult for them to maintain their mental health and stability as an individual. After that, I had this great idea to do these Let's Talk sessions for the community on various topics, anxiety, nutrition, finances, our school systems, anything to kind of get the community together to get resources, information out there. Unfortunately, February was my last one because of the pandemic. I could no longer allow people to meet the community. I am looking forward to bringing those back up, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. When I started in 2018-19 school year, I wanted to try to figure out a way to capture the number of referrals that I was receiving from our school counselors. The best way I could do it was a grid system on a spreadsheet, and until, I want to say, end of the second half of the year, I was able to keep track of all of this data. And at that time, I had about 125 plus or minus referrals. I can't give you an accurate number because I made a decision at that time that do I want to sit and collect data on a screen, or do I really want to be boots on the ground and getting the work done? So I wasn't able to capture as much data as I had intended. referrals were trending upwards. Again, too busy to collect, and then COVID hit, and my job really essentially changed from more so an in-school referral resource to boots on the ground, emergent, making sure I was feeding families, helping people maintain income, maintain housing. And again, I was tracking data was not my first priority. Flash forward to this school year, contracting another second social worker. We needed to figure out how do we tackle the entire district. So Shylin covers K-5 elementary level, and I cover middle school, high school, secondary level. We did create a new social work referral form, which encapsulates a lot of data that I can use for grants and funding, and anytime I'm trying to increase awareness about the need for mental health support for our students. So I wanted to give you a screenshot of some of the information that I'm collecting. So go ahead and go to the slide. So we just started this October, and we're up to 67 responses. Now you might be thinking, okay, that's not very many, but when you add it to the last 3 years, those 125 referrals didn't go away. This form also does not capture students that just walk into my office that are actively suicidal, need connection to a mental health therapist or medication management, or just in crisis. These are referrals that I receive from our school counselors for various reasons. So you can see kind of, I'm interested to keep collecting the data around the beginning of the year, September, as we adjust and make the transition, and then the transition when we come back from the holidays. It seems like there's a significant uptick in those referrals. You can go to the next. I collect various data on the areas of concern, and as you can see, the mental health is number one at 58% of those referrals. Other things can be referred to food insecurity or specific reasons that the counselors may need myself or Shylin to get involved, but those are the core criteria that we ask them to complete when making that referral. And then the next piece I really wanted to hit on, oftentimes we think students that are in support services, special educations are the ones that have a significant mental health instability. If you look at this pie graph, that's incorrect. The students that receive no support services at this time are the ones that are being referred more often for mental health services or support services in our school. So what have we done in these last several years of bringing a social worker involved? One of my platforms is 110% student mental health and well-being. So we received a grant from Lakeside Behavioral Health to have all of our staff trained and become trauma informed. Through that training, there were all part of vignettes for all staff where we had a team of 20 where we would collaborate and discuss cases or kids that had significant behavioral issues, how to best support and intervene with the student and family. I took it upon myself this year, over the summer, to get certified as a master trainer for QPR. QPR is called Question, Persuade, Refer. It is very similar to CPR. If somebody is dying and we are able to resuscitate to save their life, this is a very simple way that we can talk to people about suicide to save lives in a very profound way. My hope and dream is to have every single faculty member trained and also hold community trainings for anyone in the community that would like to become certified in QPR. K-12 guidance has already been trained about 2 years ago. Myself and Shylin have also tried to step up and educate faculty in meetings about trauma, mental health, self-care. There's a current curriculum called Second Step for social emotional learning that's in the K-5 classroom. I knew Lois Ann already spoke about the Roots and Wings classroom. Myself and Dr. Rodenberg sort of planned, created, developed a platform for what that class would look like, and we're hoping to be able to expand that in the years to come. Social work training to staff, anytime I have the opportunity to talk to them on a professional development about various topics, I take the time to do so. Lately, there's been a lot of discussion around behaviors and those behaviors that are manifesting from a pandemic, which was identified as a trauma, and I'll get to in a second. Also, Safe to Say came out in the last couple of years, an anonymous hotline to report any sort of threat or danger, suicide, mental health instability, anyone statewide in the community. I'm on that call list as well. So typically, if we get a report of a suicidal student, I'm on that call as well to make sure we're sending out the police or doing a welfare check to make sure that student is safe. We also recently did a training for staff on a threat assessment and suicide safety assessment procedure. That way, any student that presents with a direct threat of safety to self or others, we're able to go through an assessment process to make a determination on what supports or services that student may need. So what resources are available in the community? When I first started, I created a community resource guide of service providers in the community that I felt are reputable, at that time did not have a wait list for services, and ensure that all of our support staff had access to that resource. The one positive that has come out of the pandemic in regards to mental health is the opportunity for telehealth services. You no longer have to necessarily meet your clinician face to face. You can meet them through a computer. Now, with telehealth services comes, it's a lot easier for young adults to connect face to face. You can read body language, you can see them, but this absolutely has shortened wait lists for individuals to get into treatment. They recently updated mid-pandemic, not sure why, but the IBHS services, which stands for Intensive Behavioral Health Services. This is county funded. Students can get services like a BHT, which is a behavioral health technician, applied behavioral analysis. It's those support services in the community that are funded through medical assistance. Here at York Suburban, we have a contract with Pennsylvania Comprehensive Behavioral Health. They are a school-based mental health therapy provider. They are prioritizing all of our students at this time for school-based therapy and not taking those referrals in the community, so we can prioritize those students in need. We also elected to adopt, this is the third year now, a contract with York Adams Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities to have a school-based mental health liaison, basically a case manager that is like an extension to my arm. If I'm not able to make those referrals, that individual is able to do so. We've had a little bit of a high turnover, which I'll get to in a second, some of the barriers when it comes to mental health and accessing support and resources. It's hard to keep those positions filled. And then I'm very excited to report our first year of the Hope Squad has been phenomenal. I encourage you to like us on Instagram. The kids just finished up our first Hope Week and various themes. My favorite theme was anything but a backpack day, and our high school students were bringing in hammocks, refrigerators, luggage to really carry their school items in anything but a backpack. The idea of that theme was to, taking the weight off of your shoulders to promote hope and laughter. I received a grant. This was our pilot year. We have a squad in the middle school and the high school, and is a suicide mental health awareness program. We actually are starting to do nominations this year for our Hope Squad for next year. So effectiveness and accountability when it comes to the mental health system. I've exhausted literally all the efforts that I can within our walls. However, there is a huge systemic issue when it comes to all of the resources that are available in our community. Navigating the system. You cannot get insurance for your mental health coverage unless you have a diagnosis, and just helping families who, more than likely, the adult also suffers from some sort of mental health instability. Just figuring out where do I go, who do I call, how do I get it, what needs to be done can be an overwhelming, daunting task. Wait lists, 4 to 6 months minimum for a lot of our providers, whether it's a clinician, BHT, one-to-one services. Our partial programs like hospitalization through Philhaven, 4 to 6 month wait lists. They actually aren't even keeping a wait list currently because of the volume of students that need that level of care. A parent has to call in daily to see if their name is on the list. The reason that they're not holding the wait list is any of those students that are on a wait list, they have to provide a case management service to, meaning where am I going to connect them to services, where can they go? And right now, the amount of services that do not have a wait list are slim to none. Hospital inpatients, I've had students sit in a hospital bed in the emergency room for days and days and days while we've waited to do a bed search to find a inpatient center that will take that child. What's really difficult is sometimes the age of the student. There are a lot of programs that don't take under 12 years old. We've contracted with Mobile Crisis, so meaning if I'm busy and somebody else is busy and we have a kid that's in crisis, we're able to call Mobile Crisis from True North to come see that student. However, they're not able to come in person because the wait list is so long. Typically, they're reaching out to that student by phone to make a determination if they need a higher level of care, like an inpatient stay, to protect and ensure their safety. Provider turnover, lack of providers. I've been a social worker for 13 years now, and the system has just continued to get worse, unfortunately. The billable fee for service is not a livable wage for a social worker even on a single person income, with the number of hours that and work that we're providing based off of the wages that they're earning through a billable service. Support service in academic setting. You always ask me what I want when I come here. What can you do? Obviously, I would love to have 7 of me or 12, but I know that's not the case. So the only way we sort of offset the instability within the system is providing more. We need more clinicians, we need more psychiatrists, we need more therapists, more social workers to really support the needs of our community holistically. And funding. It seems anytime they look at funding, where to cut funding, it often comes from our housing resources, mental health resources, food insecurity, those resources that really are basic needs for an individual or family to function. So another one of my passions is, okay, I'm here in our walls, but what can I do as a social worker to help our students here in our community, here at York Suburban, but also our families outside. So I've dedicated a very lengthy amount of my time for the last 17 months interacting with WellSpan Behavioral Health to really try to help fix the systemic barriers and issues within that system. Unfortunately, to no avail, but I'll keep trying. I've dedicated some of my time to go to Harrisburg to speak with people in the financial department to discuss why specific fundings aren't specifically allocated to mental health funding. And I sat down with the director of the Department of Human Services to get a better idea of how county funding works when it comes to those services for mental health. I also recently met with our county commissioners and our York County Director of Human Services to have a very honest discussion on where does the money go and how are those providers that are receiving that funding, like your school-based IBHS services, who's monitoring them and ensuring that the service is being delivered are equitable and adequate. We've also, once a month, all of the York County social workers meet to collaborate on, how do we improve access to mental health treatment? What can we do collectively within our walls and our school systems to improve mental well-being? Our last call, last Friday, we had, I want to say 7 to 8 state representatives from all across the state on to sort of collaborate and figure out what are they doing that works well, what would we need to improve upon. I'm also a member of the York County Communities That Care to, again, holistically figure out how do we break some of these walls and barriers when it comes to mental health, food insecurity, basically the holistic needs of a person and better access to care. I am happy to announce that I'm picking back up my Let's Talk session. So my next one will be this month at the middle school cafeteria, 6 to 7:30, and I'm going to do a discussion as well as with my fellow coworker Shylin on mental health. So there's been a lot of topics, especially through this pandemic, on what is causing this, what is causing that. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview on how behaviors manifest through a trauma. This pandemic is a trauma. We've created a lot of epidemics within this big pandemic as a fallout of a lack of control, a change in transition. We can't see family. All of these things dictate the behaviors that are associated to that trauma. What's really important to remember is not the incident. The incident is important, but what we have to focus on as a community are the behaviors that are associated with the thing that has happened to that person. No matter how big or small, it's the behavior that's associated. When we have a lack of control or feel like we're out of control, like going to virtual learning, the first thing, it's normal for human instinct is to find something to control, whether that be not completing homework, not going to school, fighting mom and dad. Oftentimes, when we look for those behavioral reinforcements in a young adult and adults, it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative reinforcement, as long as I'm getting some sort of reinforcement to feel okay. And that's the big issue, the big, crutch, if we will, that we have to figure out here at York Suburban. How do we holistically help everybody, but understanding that there is no round peg in a round hole anymore. We have to learn to embrace the uncomfortable and the square peg in the round hole. There's not an ideal, perfect fit, but we do have to cater to the individual needs of each student. And the only way we do that is by coming together holistically to support what our students are telling us they need, and how do we make that happen. Yep, again, so let's talk. I hope you all can attend. My sessions have ranged from 40 to 50 people attending to just a couple. The nutrition one was not very popular. But hopefully we'll be able to work around with the last couple months of this school year to have some really important discussions about a lot of really important stuff. So thank you. Board, I wanted to leave you an opportunity for questions.
So, and I appreciate everything you've laid out. The infrastructure that you've built is impressive over the last couple of years. And, give us an update on where we're at. But I think I asked you this question a few years back. I'm going to ask the same question again. How do you define success?
I think it's hard to give a giant number on what success looks like.
Not looking for a number.
So, and it's 100% individual basis. I have a kid that if I can keep them alive until tomorrow morning, until I get them into care, that's a success. If I can send a kid that I can get funding away to treatment for 6 months to really go through their mental health instabilities, I define that as success. If the numbers of families that we can reach to ensure that they can put food on their table, I define that as a success. Mental health is very unique, and each individualized person really defines and caters where they want to go. I can't force anyone to receive treatment that does not want to engage in treatment. All I can do is promote and empower and kind of work with them where they're at to reduce the stigma around mental health and encourage them to engage in their treatment. But ultimately, it's a personal choice and decision.
Ms. King, over the past 20 months, I've received numerous pieces of literature from WellSpan and UPMC heralding the arrival of plastic surgeons, new pain management teams, cardiology teams, and a number of other medical disciplines that are being added to the mix for the community. On the basis of what you reported tonight, I'm going to go out on a limb and speculate that there has not been a corresponding increase in mental or behavioral health services at any of the major healthcare institutions in our community. Would that be safe?
That would be safe. There have not been major improvements.
Do you see any possibility of that happening in the foreseeable future?
I do not, which is why we've really turned to legislation and policy and funding to ensure that it's going where it needs to go, instead of relying on a behavioral health corporation to make all of those decisions.
Thank you.
Miranda, just to kind of tag on to what Mr. Sanders asked, could you share, take the pick, a success story that you would say, you've been proud of, we could be proud of? I'm just curious. I know there must be those, and wondered if you would just share one.
Mm-hmm. I work a lot with students that are in transition, or whether it's through the LGBTQ plus community or the foster care community. And I will mention one of our older adults. They will be 18 coming up here shortly, but when you're in a life of foster care for the majority of your young and adult life, decision making and mental health is incredibly difficult. When she came to us in August, would buck at every opportunity to not go to class, not follow the rules, just didn't have any trust or care in the world whatsoever. Was biding out her time until she could sign herself out of care. Flash forward to now, unfortunately, she did make the decision to, sign herself out of care when she turns 18. But she has gained the skills and understanding that we care, that you can form health, safety relationships with people that love you and support you, whether they're your biological parents, a teacher, a janitor, a custodian. We will do whatever it takes to ensure that your safety and livelihood matter most. I advocated to the point of all possible advocacy to ensure that student was treating fairly through the children and youth system. So I think this student has learned that regardless of what they come with and where they come from, we care and they matter.
And that's something that's going to stay with that child, that person, forever.
Yes. She would run away quite often, and we've gotten her to the point to be able to stay. Is she necessarily happy every day? No, but when you deal with that world of trauma and abuse, being part of something, part of a community present is really important.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlene. And that concludes superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you. Business office, Julie.
Okay, so good evening, board. We have a couple of items to discuss for tonight. None of these items are for vote. They will be asked to be voted on at the February 28th meeting. Item 1 is the proposed 22-23 Lincoln Intermediate Unit General Operating Budget for your consideration and adoption. The increase in the budget is the 4.81% over the current year, or $370,000. Our share of that has slightly decreased by $36.38. That brings us to a contribution of $5,559.20. Any questions on that item? Moving on to item 2, this is just procedural, and it's to accept the local audit for June 30th of 2021 as presented by Smith, Elliott, and Kearns on January 24th, 2022. Item number 3 is an annual approval of our federal pass-through money of IDEA. Our allocation for 21-22 is $578,677.52, which is an increase of $93,000 over the current. Item 4 is a similar item in that it's IDEA funds, but this is part of the American Rescue Plan supplemental funds. And this is strictly restricted to, these funds are strictly towards special education students. The allocation for these funds are $124,000. The spending year for this particular award is July 1st of 2021 through September 30th of 22. Item number 5 are 3 educational services agreement with Specialized Education of Pennsylvania. We're doing business as High Road School of York. And you can see each of the terms of the agreement for each of the students.
I have a question. We have, as you just mentioned, 3 kids that are enrolled or going to be enrolled in this program. Could you describe a little bit about what those services are, how student success is measured, and whether we receive progress reports of any kind? And then talk too about the possibility of the process of these kids returning to the district.
May I ask Ms. Campbell to help me with that question? Can you just be specific which program you're speaking about? These are the High Road students.
Oh, sure. So High Roads is a school for students with disabilities, students that have emotional disabilities that require therapeutic support services, as well as a small structured environment with behavior system put into place. These students, the school itself has about 80 students total, that's K through 12. And these students would be part of those classes. So they would receive their education in a very small, structured classroom, about less than 10 students. And with all of our students with special needs, we would always have a transition plan to bring them back to district. In fact, one of the students we're actually talking about already, that at the end of the school year, we would be looking at bringing her back to high school. We've done that in the past. We had 2 students come back last year from High Roads as well.
And do they transition back in where they would have left off, or is there some delay in educational progress?
No, they use a general education curriculum, so they gain credits just like they would here in the high school. So when they come back in with the credits that they earned there.
how would you judge the success of the program with our kids so far?
I've actually been pretty impressed with them since starting here at York Suburban. We started the program when I came in last year with 2 students, and we currently have 6. And I think one of the best parts of the program is their current administration. The director and assistant director are fabulous with kids. They work really well with students who have what Miranda talked about, those instability livelihoods that at home it's not real stable. So they kind of serve as role models for the students and really teach them what it means to be proud and confident in themselves.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is also an educational service contract. This contract is with Northeastern School District. They are purchasing an elementary autistic support seat for 75 days at a cost of $15,777. Item number 7 is the proposed York Adams Academy general operating budget. The budget has increased by $27,113. It also includes a 3% increase in salaries. The 22-23 membership fee per seat has increased by $200 for a total of $46.50 per student. The district's projected cost ranges between $55,800 to $69,750. We currently have 12 seats with the option of purchasing an additional 3 seats. Item number 8 is a memorandum of understanding with Mansfield University. This MOU would allow for YS students to take college courses at Mansfield University. And this request came from the secondary, from the high school. The last item for on the items that will be voted on is a request to authorize the business office to approve change orders up to $10,000. Currently, we're involved in a short project for the replacement of the central plant chillers that started on January 25th. We want to ensure that the project moves accordingly and that it's not delayed. And therefore, we're asking the board for consideration to allow for this. Of course, any change orders that would be approved by the business office would be then reported to the board as a whole.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Backing up to number 6,
Yes.
Northeastern is purchasing one of our elementary autism seats. Am I correct that Northeastern transports that student to us?
Correct.
We are not obligated to do that.
Correct.
Thank you.
How are the services from Mansfield delivered?
Dr. Krauser, would you know that answer?
I was just reading the MOU. It looks to me like they're offering any kind of service that they'd use for concurrent enrollment, so I would think it would probably be a virtual for this location. Let me investigate a little bit closer to see if they're offering some sort of remote cohort. That I'm not sure of, because I know that York County schools have engaged in that as well. So let me see if they're opening up a remote cohort. But I think to start, it's virtual.
Thank you.
Under the informational section is just an item that was a follow-up from the Personnel Committee presentation that occurred last week. And it is, committee member asked the breakdown of how the salaries and benefits were generated for the new positions. So that information has been provided in this link. Are there any questions on the Personnel Committee follow-up?
That's why I wanted to go back to
9.
the hypothetical.
Sure.
You get a $9,900 change order followed by a $500 change order that would go over the threshold for single. That's being by singular or amount of people.
Correct.
So anything over $10,000.
Would come to the board.
Mrs. Chichuli, I do have an answer to Mr. Sears' question. Yeah, Mr. Sears, the enrollment sections are offered in the variety of options. Students may enroll online courses, hybrid courses, and/or face-to-face courses under the agreement in both the academic year as well as the summer sessions. So I would guess by that language, if they're going to use a university on-site campus, they would have to arrange to have that course taken in that area.
Thank you, Dr. Krause. The second item on under the informational section is the governor's budget address. At the next meeting, we will be presenting what that means to the district. Mrs. Fry and I viewed a webinar today to gather some additional information. So we'll be providing the board and the community with some more details as far as the governor's proposal is concerned. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Casey.
All right, good evening, everyone. I noticed that in the budget report, we were talking about the memorandum with Mansfield, and that kind of brought up to me that it is course selection time at the high school. And so we are supposed to enter our courses in campus, our course requests on the 17th, by the 17th. And just like in Mr. Chichili's report, the things like the connection with Mansfield University would really benefit our students as we have a career college and workforce requirement for my class and on. And that means we can take dual enrollment classes, do a certain number of volunteer hours, and also get workforce experience. And when talking about the dual enrollment, the Mansfield University has really great completely asynchronous classes, which would really be probably one of the options for high school schedules when talking about transportation and honestly just resources. So I think that is a really great opportunity for all of our students, and I'm really excited to see what happens with that because I might be going to that for my senior year. So events at our school coming up, we have a Snowco dance, which is our semi-formal that is benefiting Minicon, and it's going to be held this Thursday in our gym from 7 to 9. It's super exciting. And then for sports, we have a number of our swimmers that are competing in districts at the beginning of March. And then our girls basketball team has made it to districts as well, and their first district game is February 22nd against Lansing Chapter. And that's all I have to get tonight.
Thank you. Personnel Committee, Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Posnow. Item 1, update from the meeting held on 7 February. The Personnel Committee met on 7 February at 5 p.m. Minutes of the meeting of 4 October 2021 were approved. The administrative team presented a thorough and comprehensive list of personnel recommendations. These recommendations will be presented to the full board shortly. Item 2, you have before you the personnel report. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Thank you. Questions? This can be
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Item 3, the Personnel Committee recommends the administration proceeds with the budgeting, hiring, and recruitment process to secure replacements for the following retirees and their related positions: Daniel Anderson, David Dara, Daniel Van Howie, Nancy Karakoska, Leslie Goodhart, Eric Hoffman, Tom Guerin, Suzanne Pernitis, Richard Peterson, Timothy Williams, Barry Gerling.
I have a motion. Thank you. Questions or comments? I think this can also be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion carries.
Item 4, the administration seeks board approval to proceed with the development of the 2022-23 general fund budget, provided the following positions are excluded from the list of new personnel requests: multi-language instructor, elementary teacher, English teacher, college and career transition coordinator, security coaches.
Do I have a motion? Thank you. Questions? This can be unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous vote call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Item 5, the Personnel Committee recommends approval of the changes to the SCS substitute rates.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you. Questions? Comments? This can be unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous vote call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Policy Committee, Mr. Tillman.
Good evening. First, update from the meeting held on February 1st, which is basically we reviewed the 6 policies that we're going to talk about too. Just went over the revisions that were proposed for the general public. The proposals that we typically talk about on the policy are all ones that are presented to us by the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. They have basically a generic policy, I'm going to say, that they for everyone adopt, which their extensive legal force has reviewed and made sure is in compliance with the laws of the state and the federal laws. And so when those suggestions are brought to us from PSBA, we basically attempt to faithfully follow those as best we can. We do not come up with rigid policies out of whole cloth. We don't tend to pull them because one of us decide there's a policy we need changed, following the recommendations that were by PSBA. In these 6 cases, that's exactly what occurred as well. And so we have 6 policies that are being presented here tonight for first read. They will be presented also February 28th and March 14th, and vote to adopt the revisions on March 28th. So none of this will become policy until we submit for all of these policies really are to put us in compliance with current law and also best practice at the current state. So we have policy 6 on meetings, policy 201 on admission of beginners, policy 610 purchases subject to bid and quotation, policy 611 purchases budgeted, policy 626 federal fiscal compliance, and policy 903 public participation. Are there any board members that have questions? It's policy for this. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. Posnell. I'll start with HB 272, introduced by Representative Joseph Cerisi, addressing charter schools' lack of accountability and ethical standards. This bill is aimed at reducing overpayments. It could save the state or state school districts as much as $400 million. April 25th is Advocacy Day this year, and it will be a dual approach. There will be provisions for people to attend the sessions in Harrisburg in person and remotely. Since Mrs. Cichuli will be presenting on the governor's budget, I will not say a word about it, except there are going to be provisions for community-based mental health services in this budget. Apparently, Miranda King's travels to Harrisburg have not gone unheard. More to follow. In addition, there are a number of bills that are in the pipeline I'm sure we will be talking about several of them in the future. If there are no questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Frye.
Yes, you have before you the highlights from the LIU board meeting of February 1st, which are always interesting to let you know about what's going on out there. In New Oxford, for the Joint Operating Authority, I have no report. York Adams Academy, I'm pleased to report that we continue to use the 15 vacancies that we have, as well as 4 extras that were purchased this year. We have a total of 19 students. We've had that many students and students since way back in the fall. So there is definitely a need for our participation in York Adams Academy. If any of my fellow board members have any questions about the budget, I'm glad if you want to contact me, I'll try and answer your questions. That completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. York County staff. Ms. Schrader, York County School of Technology.
Yes, you have the mini board report attached to the agenda. I encourage all my fellow board members to peruse that at your leisure and find out a little more about what's going on at the School of Technology. And lastly, I would like to recognize a York Suburban student who is a 9th grader at the School of Technology, Mackenzie Ravenstein Lee Hollis, who was recognized in December as a Student of the Month. She is a 9th grader in communications technology, and she was nominated by her social studies teacher. 2 outstanding qualities that her teacher mentioned that she respected and admired in Mackenzie were her perseverance and her dedication. So as is our custom, we'll be recognizing her, send her a note of congratulations, but we recognize her and congratulate her on this recognition. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody that came to visit with us tonight. There's a link to upcoming events, and there's also a link to the board meeting and committee meeting schedules. And this will be your last opportunity for public comment. Again, all questions and comments will be addressed to the president. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the president for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the president, 5 minutes or less.
Hi, Kathy Schaefer, Spring Garden Township. John, since I'm supposed to direct this goes now to you. Would you thank Mr. Troman for his clarification of the SBA-driven changes to the policy?
Sure.
Well
done.
They were quite significant, some of them, and that's why I was thinking, wow. I do have one other question as I was perusing the policy, the links. Well, not a question, because I can't answer a question. I was searching for the naming of facilities. Is it possible for anyone to tell me if there is more than one policy for facilities? I think I saw them with property heading.
I believe that's it. Let me check before.
Kind of vague. That's why it's always vague. It's become more vague as time.
Can we get back to you?
Absolutely. All right. And I'm happy to see the public participation policy is a little more being tightened.
Other comments? Then I think we can be adjourned. Thank you.